She said, "I love you, but I'm not in love with you anymore." I just nodded and said, "I understand the difference." She didn't realize the difference was also between paying half the rent and paying all of it. It's funny the things you remember after a disaster. I don't remember much about the week after my apartment burned down. Just a blur of insurance calls and smelling like smoke. But I remember every single second of the conversation that started the fire that burned down my 6-year relationship with Chloe. It's been about 8 months now, and I'm finally at a point where I can look back and see the whole ridiculous, pathetic story for what it was. I guess I should start with the talk. Every long-term relationship has a few of them, but this one was the big one. Chloe, who was 29 at the time, and I, 32, were living in a great apartment in a city where great apartment means costs as much as a small country's GDP. We were a team. We both had good jobs, we split everything right down the middle, and we were making it work. We were building something. Or, I was. Chloe, it turned out, was window shopping. She sat me down on the couch, her face all serious, and gave me the speech. I'm sure you've heard it. It's the breakup speech for cowards. The "I want to have my cake and eat it too" manifesto. "Ethan," she started, looking at her hands, "I love you. You're my best friend. But I have to be honest, I'm not in love with you anymore." The air went out of the room. She went on, talking about how she felt stifled, how the spark was gone, and how she wanted the freedom to find herself again. But she quickly added, she didn't want to lose me or our life. She didn't want to move out. She just wanted us to be best friends. Best friends who live together, share a life, but are emotionally and romantically untethered. She wanted all the benefits of our partnership: the shared rent on a great place, the companionship, the stability, with none of the obligations of being a partner. She was essentially asking me to be her roommate and subsidize her journey of self-discovery. In that moment, I just felt tired. I was looking at this woman I had loved for 6 years, and I realized she was a stranger who was reading from a script she'd seen on TV. I just nodded. "I understand the difference," I said, and God, the relief on her face. She thought she'd gotten away with it. For the next 2 weeks, she was a new person. She was breezy, happy, and treated me with the cheerful condescension of a benevolent employer. She went out with her friends, stayed out late, and would come home and tell me all about the interesting people she was meeting. She was living her best single life, with the massive safety net of our shared apartment and my steady presence. Meanwhile, I was living in a ghost story. My partner had been replaced by this cheerful, oblivious roommate who looked just like her. The breaking point wasn't emotional. It was practical. It was a letter from our building's management. Our lease was up for renewal in 60 days, and due to market changes, the rent was going up by a lot. About $800 a month. I sat down at the kitchen table with the letter and a calculator. Before, this would have been a team decision. We would have looked at the numbers, figured out a budget, and decided together. Now, there was no team. There was just me, and there was the friendly ghost of my ex-girlfriend who was currently humming in the shower after a night out. I did the math. The new rent would be $4,400 a month. My half would be $2,200. I could swing it, but it would be tight. Her half would also be $2,200, and that's when it hit me. The simple, brutal math of the situation. Her breezy new freedom was being paid for by our old 50-50 agreement. Her journey of self-discovery was being funded by a partnership she had already dissolved. That night, I didn't sleep. I was on rental websites looking at one-bedroom apartments. They were smaller, not as nice, but they were affordable for one person. My person. I found a place I liked in a neighborhood I'd always wanted to live in. I filled out the application online at 3 a.m. The next day, I got a call. My application was approved. I had a new apartment. The lease started in 3 weeks. That evening, I found Chloe in the living room, looking at her phone. "Hey," I said. "We need to talk about the lease renewal." She looked up, annoyed. Can we not talk about boring adult stuff right now? I'm trying to relax." "This will only take a minute," I said. I slid the letter from the management company onto the coffee table. "The rent is going up to $4,400 a month." She glanced at it and scoffed. "Ouch. Well, I guess we'll have to make it work." "No, Chloe," I said, "we won't have to do anything. The lease is up in 60 days. I will not be renewing it. She stared at me. What do you mean, you're not renewing it? Where are we going to live? That's the thing, I said, my voice steady. There is no we. I found a new apartment, a 1-bedroom. I move in 3 weeks. I'm telling you now, so you have almost 2 full months to figure out your own living situation. The color drained from her face. This was a variable she had not accounted for. You got your own apartment? Without me? You're just leaving? You told me you weren't in love with me, I said. That means our partnership is over. I'm not obligated to live with my ex-girlfriend, especially not when the rent is this high. This is the difference between love and being in love, Chloe. Being in love means tackling a $4,000 rent together. Just loving someone means wishing them luck on finding a new place they can afford on their own. The meltdown was immediate and spectacular. She accused me of being petty, of punishing her, of throwing her out on the street. She couldn't grasp the simple logic of it. She truly believed that she could change the fundamental terms of our relationship without any of the consequences. She wanted the freedom of being single, but the financial security of being a partner. The next few weeks were a nightmare of tense silence and whispered, angry phone calls she'd have in her room. She couldn't afford our apartment on her own. She couldn't afford anything even close to it. Her free-spirited friends didn't have a spare room for her. Their apartments were tiny and already overflowing with other struggling artists. She tried every tactic. She tried crying, saying she'd made a terrible mistake. She tried yelling, saying I owed her for the 6 years she'd invested in me. I just kept my head down. I packed my things. I was not her partner anymore. I was just her roommate, and our lease was ending. The day I moved out, she just sat on the floor in the empty living room and watched. My friends who were helping me move didn't make eye contact with her. As I was carrying my last box out the door, she looked up at me, her face pale. So this is it? She whispered. You're really just gonna leave me with nothing? I stopped at the door and looked back at her. I'm not leaving you with nothing, Chloe, I said. I'm leaving you with exactly what you asked for. Freedom. The space to find yourself, no strings attached. It's been 8 months. My new apartment is smaller, but it's mine. It's quiet. My life is my own. I heard through a mutual friend that Chloe ended up having to move back in with her parents in the suburbs. Her grand journey of self-discovery ended in her childhood bedroom. She couldn't afford the city without a partner, and it turns out the city is a tough place to find a new one when you don't have a great apartment to bring them back to. She wanted to redefine our relationship on her terms. She just didn't understand that relationships, like leases, have terms and conditions. And the in-love clause is the most important one. When you void that part of the contract, the whole deal is off the table. It wasn't revenge. It was just business.